America vs. Russia Space Exploration Part 2. First spacewalk, March 25, 1965. Russian cosmonaut Alexei Leonov became the first person to walk in space, after leaving the Voskid spacecraft that carried 2 passengers. Leonov walked in space for about 10 minutes. His suit expanded minutes after he stepped into space owing to the lack of pressure, and he was unable to fit through the hatch when he tried to return to the spacecraft. Leonov had to release a valve to partially depressurize his suit to allow him to get back into the spaceship. 3 months later, Ed White would become the first American to walk in space. First pictures of Mars, June 14, 1965. The spacecraft Mariner 4 was the first to fly to Mars and the first to transmit pictures of Mars. Spent all of 25 minutes taking 21 photographs of the red planet from distances ranging between 6,200 miles and 10,500 miles above the planet. Those first, blurry images of Mars's craters and barren landscapes suggested to some scientists that the planet was similar to our moon and dispelled hope that it had ever held life. Soviet land spacecraft on the moon, Venus, February 3, 1996. 1966 would prove to be a significant year for the Soviet space program. February of that year, the USSR would land an unmanned spacecraft called Luna on the moon that sent back transmissions to Earth. Less than a month later, on March 1, the Soviet Union would succeed in landing a spacecraft on Venus. Pre-impacted Venus, the first spacecraft to land on another planet, but the communications systems failed before any data could be retrieved. The U.S. lands spacecraft on the Moon June 2, 1966. The United States, still playing catch-up in the space race, landed its first spacecraft, the unmanned Surveyor 1, on the Moon in June. The mission was considered a success, and the technology needed to achieve landing and operations on the lunar surface succeeded. One performed engineering functions and took photos and televised images of the spacecraft's footpad and the lunar surface. Soviet spacecraft first to orbit the Moon, September 15, 1968. The Russian spacecraft Zond 5 became the first spacecraft to orbit the Moon and return to Earth. Aboard the Zond 5 were turtles, mealworms, seeds, bacteria, and other living things. After the spacecraft landed in the Indian Ocean, all of the biological passengers were safely recovered. The flight was seen as a precursor to the manned lunar landing. Apollo 8, December the 21st to the 28th, 1968. Apollo 8 was among the most famous of America's space missions, the first manned spacecraft to leave Earth's gravity and reach the Moon. The mission conducted a number of tests that were crucial to the lunar landing the following year. The crew photographed the lunar surface, both the far side and near side, as well as Earth. The mission Earthrise photo would become among the most famous of the 20th century. The astronauts had 6 live television transmissions, including the Christmas Eve broadcast in which they read from the Book of Genesis, at the time the most watched TV broadcast ever. Men walk on the Moon, July 20, 1969. American astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on a celestial entity other than Earth on July 20, 1969, fulfilling President John F. Kennedy's hope of landing humans on the Moon before the end of the decade. Armstrong's quote as he stepped on the lunar surface, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," has become immortal. Was one of America's proudest moments, witnessed by hundreds of millions of people on television around the world. Armstrong and Aldrin spent 2.5 hours on the surface collecting rocks and soil samples and, among other tasks, measuring by laser the exact distance between the Moon and Earth. Armstrong and Aldrin were the first of 12 men, all Americans, who have walked on the Moon. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what country do you think is more technological advanced? Certainly, we're about to find out in the next video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.